Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to be brewing my kitchen sink nitro stout, aptly named because it contains everything but. Only this time I'm also going to add some beetroot, or beets, for our cousins across the pond. Before we talk recipe, let's talk inspiration. It was a not so balmy June evening and I fancied an alfresco stout. If you use a CO2 regulator and an argon adapter, in the UK at least, a nitro setup isn't that much of an expensive option. And I love the fact you get to give the tick follows top speech each time you pour a pint. And here it is in its natural environment, thick, black, inky and viscous, with a creamy head that will last to the very end of the beer. But after a couple of pints of that, I fancied a change. Cue the beetroot Saison with Brett. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Now if I'd poured the beer straight away, it would have been crystal clear, I promise. But because I left it until it was actually escaping from the bottle, while I was fanning around with the camera and bits and pieces, it ended up being a little bit cloudy. Now for the beard wearing haze lovers amongst you, that's probably not a big deal, but for me I was quite annoyed. Still, I think you can appreciate the colour and how pretty it looks. So there I am enjoying my beer, and I started to think. I love the taste of this Saison. The beetroot gives a subtle, sweet earthiness that I don't think you could get in any other way. But I also love my inky black nitro stout with that head that just keeps on giving all the way to the bottom. But you could never combine the two tastes, could you? Well, I'm bloody sure I'm going to give it a go. But first, let's head on over to Recipe Corner. So typically with recipes, less is more. But this is my kitchen sink stout, so strap in for a lustrous list. First off, Marisotta for its rich maltiness. Malted rye to add a little bit of spice and play about with the mouthfeel. Pale chocolate, self-explanatory. Some flaked oats, I think the beetroot might thin it out a bit. And even on nitro, I don't want a thin mouthfeel. Carafa 3 to give me roastiness without astringency, and roasted barley just to have a bit of that astringency. Dark crystal, just to try and get a tad of raisin. Treacle, because it was lying about in the cupboard and why not. Oat husks, just like rice soles, because I've got a lot of sticky stuff in there, and I don't want a stuck mash. And finally the beetroot, there's a lot of it, but I'm really looking for that beetroot earthiness. I think that's going to play really well with the stout. On the hop front, it's Magnum to bitter, and Archer just to add a little bit of apricot taste. And then someone's been a lazy bugger and not done a starter, so I'm afraid it's a couple of packets of rehydrated yeast. And fingers crossed at the end of all that, I'll have a 4.5% beer. And at last, hey, it's brew day. And first off, a trip to my dad's allotment.
There you go. Ugly as sin, but anyway, it'll taste like a beetroot.
If you're going to invest in an RO system, get a pump and daisy chain 2 of the membranes together. It'll mean an awful lot less of this. So, water on and it's grain time. I've got some dark grain, some more dark grain, some more dark, well, you get the idea. But look, there is some base grain. Here it is going through the mill. So grain milled and it's into the mash. Oh, nearly. Whoa there, Jesse. Gonna need a false bottom in there first. Let's try that again. Grain in, and you can see the anti-stuck sparge oat husks on top. I always add my mash water from the bottom, which means I need a lot less of this. pH wise, we're aiming for between 5.2 and 5.4. That's not bad. With a little bit of phosphoric acid, I can do better. Fast forward 70 minutes and the mash is done. So now it's the first of 2 batch sparges. And while that's draining, you guessed it, it's tea time. Then we're going to top and tail each of the beetroots. There's the tail. And there's the top. Then it's time to give them a bloody good wash. Preferably without soap. That's better. And with all my beetroot washed, it's time for a bit of choppy choppy. Careful choppy choppy. With 10 digits fully intact, it's onto the blender. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot of beetroot. And back to the brew. You join me as I add the first Magnum hops. And now you join me as I frantically paddle the top of the wort to try and stop a boil over. I think all the particles in the hops created nucleation points which then caused it to completely fizz up. And once it's under control, I'm going to add my water salts. You know, you'd think I learned, wouldn't you? I had to turn the heat off for this one. And now for the beetroot. Doesn't it look pretty? Stir, 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 just to make sure it doesn't catch on the element. And with yet another boil over remnant, it's time to turn off the element again. This isn't getting boring, is it? And with that under control, it's time to get the fermenter prepped. First of all, we boil all the fittings for 15 or 20 minutes, and then we give the fermenter a liberal spray down with sanitizer. After that, all we need to do is tuck it up in bed and get ready to pump the water into it. So after I'd finished pumping out into the fermenter, I only ended up losing about 2 litres of waste in the kettle. I was expecting to lose a little bit more than that with all the beetroot debris in there. So, yeast rehydrated, pitched, and I thought that was going to be it until keg day. Of course, I could have been wrong. Look what I came down to the next morning. Now I've brewed between 30 and 40 litre batches in one of these Blickman fermenters, and I have never ever had a beer try and escape from one. Given the amount of times it tried to escape from the kettle, I shouldn't be surprised, but annoying all the same. Anyway, time for a clean up. And when you get tired of towels, just break out the hose. Anyway, a short time after this, we were all cleaned up and a blow-off tube was hastily installed. And with no further incidents, we at last have beer. Right, so the most important question is it any good? No, let's not do that. Let me take you through the subtle bits first. You can smell beetroot, but apart from that, there's no real aroma. Colour-wise, the head, as you probably saw earlier on, it's like a chocolate and strawberry McDonald's milkshake mixed up. So you can see the pinkness. It's not as vivid as I thought it was going to be if you saw the Saison. I mean, that was bright pink, and I did think the head on this would be a lot pinker, but you can definitely see there's a pinkness to it. And as you hold it up to the light, and I'll show pictures, I'll say this, you can see the redness of the beer, but it is clear, and there's a real, like I said, it's just a red tint to it. So the beetroot is definitely there, colour-wise and appearance-wise. In terms of taste, you instantly know it's a stout. It's got the nitro smoothness to it. It's got that dark grain bite at the very end, that bitterness that Guinness has. There's a little bit of spice there as well. I'll say spice. What I know to be rye, had that sort of silky mouthfeel that goes beyond what nitro will give it, so that's there as well. All the various crystal malts and whatever that I put in it, there were too little quantities to even be able to taste properly, and I was, I think, mucking about with this beer more than expecting to be able to taste all of those individual flavours. But no, the stouts go, it's perfect drink, looks very nice. The biggest issue with it is the beetroot. So with the Saison, we had beetroot and Brett and the Saison yeast all playing together. So it had that sort of Belgian horse blanket, and then a little bit of earthiness from the beetroot and sweetness from the beetroot as well, which sounds strange in a Saison because it's so dry, but there is a sweetness that comes from the beetroot. So in that case, those three flavours and the beetroot plays really nicely with them. So it's like being in the playground at school, you're with your mates, and the three of them play really nicely together. When it comes to the stout, you don't get any sweetness from the beetroot, you just get earthiness, and it doesn't play nice. So going back to the sort of playground analogy, this is the bully, the beetroot, that just comes in, tells all the other kids to piss off, smacks them, etc, etc. This is a beetroot stout. It's not a stout with beetroot, it is beetroot stout. As you sip it, well, one, as you smell it, you can smell the beetroot. As you sip it, the first thing you taste is earthiness, and your brain says, what's that? Oh, it's beetroot. So if you've ever had beetroot juice, if you've ever eaten, just a normal unpickled beetroot in a salad, it's that taste. It is really, really strong. It's not unpleasant, it's not horrible. I'll drink it. I've got to drink it. I've got 38 litres of it. There's no off tastes in it, at least that my palate can detect. It is just a beetroot beer. So, hey ho, live and learn. What I'll try and do is get rid of a couple of litres round to the Homebrew Club and get their verdicts on it, and maybe I'll append those to this at some point in time. But for the minute, perfectly drinkable. Less is more when it comes to recipes, so you can layer crystal malts to get different tastes, but the more things you throw in, generally you muddy the taste of a beer. So I think if I'm going to do this again, I'm not going to do another stout with beetroot. No, actually, I'll say that now. I will not do another stout with beetroot. I might do a best bitter with beetroot, but I'd put a lot less beetroot in, and I would then try and use a really characterful English ale yeast, and I would use quite a bit of hops in that, just again to try and make the beetroot balance off against something else, because with just the dark grain it's just overpowering. And I don't think that's going to get the dark grain taste will fade as this gets older and this ages. I don't think the beetroot taste will. So yeah, lesson learned. Beetroot in a stout, yeah, no. Yeah, but no, but yeah, no. Anyway, let's see what we're going to try next time. I don't know. But if you like the video and you're not too bored of my voice, then by all means subscribe and leave some feedback below, and then I'll try and do something better next time. Until then, cheers guys, have fun. Yeah.